Welcome back to this already the final segment of today's Price of Business. I am your host, Kevin Price, talking to you about you and your business. Do want to remind you, show continues 24/7 at priceofbusiness.com, which we're talking a lot about the big changes going on over there with the launch of the brand new television show starting in January 2016. And that's going to be the first Sunday. All right, check that out. Also, I want to encourage you to check out our guests. In fact, he's a regular contributor on The Price of Business, Charles Alvarez, and he is awesome at what he does. In fact, I've been working with him for a few years, and I love what you do. Love what you've done with our company. I've loved the success stories that I've heard of how you have taken companies, simply taking companies to the next level. I love it, and that's what you do over there at Cornerstone Business Academy by focusing on sales, marketing, and on systems to make all of that run much more efficiently. Charles, good to talk to you.
Always good being here, Kevin.
Talk a little bit more about your company real quickly, your elevator speech, and then go ahead and introduce your guest, which looks like a really good one, by the way.
No, I'm really excited about Patrick Dennis. Yeah, our company works really kind of what Patrick does, which is keeping companies safe, and we do that by creating a business that doesn't require the owner to sell and to operate it so they can truly create an asset versus creating just another job. Speaking of keeping companies safe, and I know that's been a subject of a lot of news here recently, we have Patrick Dennis with us of Guidance Software. Patrick, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to the talk today.
Well, we're glad to have you. Kind of give us your elevator speech, if you will.
Yeah, sure. Guidance Software is in the business of reducing companies' digital risk. We were founded in 1997. We started with software called NCASE, built for digital investigation. We've been growing ever since. We're used by 72 of the Fortune 100 and 47 of the Fortune 500. We're in cybersecurity, e-discovery, and digital investigations.
Very good. Charles?
So what are the major challenges, Patrick, that you see that your clients, or for that matter, the market's facing, and how does your company help address that challenge?
Yeah, well, I mean, not a day goes by where you don't see something on the front page of some paper or blog about cybersecurity. So our customers are facing the challenges associated with digital risk. And, you know, Charles, if you think about it, almost every company today is digital. So as we close out the year, there'll be 90 million breaches that have occurred around the world. And there'll be almost $500 billion of cost associated with those breaches. And so companies have a big exposure on the cost side. And what's often not talked about is McKinsey & Company did a study, and there was almost $3 trillion of revenue opportunity not recognized this year because of cyber risk. So our customers are facing both kind of the cost of doing business digitally and the risks associated with that, but they're also not tapping into the total opportunity that they all have.
Mm-hmm. Talk a little bit about, I can't think of anything that would be a bigger growth industry than what you're doing in cybersecurity, because people sit there and they watch the news, and it doesn't matter how large the entity, including government entities that you think would be protected to the hilt, that isn't vulnerable to cybersecurity issues.
No, that's exactly right. I mean, let's take the government entities for a second. They're a good example. You know, people didn't think about these kind of attacks 10, 15 years ago when some of these systems were put in place. So just because you're a large company or you're a large government agency doesn't mean you're safe and secure from these things. In fact, oftentimes it's inversely correlated. So every company today needs to consider these things. And you're right, as far as growth goes, there really hasn't been a better sector to be in this year than cybersecurity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sounds like it. Go ahead, Charles.
So, Patrick, can you kind of walk us through a case study of an example of a recent example of one of your customers or one of your new clients coming on board, and specifically how do you address the challenges related to cybersecurity, and what was the ultimate result as a result of the value that you provided them?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think case studies are really an important way for people to understand what challenges customers face. So we had a recent Fortune 500 international bank who had done the right things and built out security infrastructure around their organization. They used antivirus software, data loss protection software and hardware, and yet they still felt like they had been hacked. And they used our software to, first of all, identify the anomalous behavior across their very large organization. Once they found that anomalous behavior, they were able to determine they were, in fact, being attacked, how they were being attacked. And then once we sorted those two things out, we looked around the rest of the organization and cleaned it. So we got the attack out. think it's a good case study for the following reasons. One, you do need to invest in all these different layers of security. But two, what we do best is something called endpoint security, meaning laptops, desktops, servers, point-of-sale systems. And you really have to have protection on the endpoint because that's ultimately where the attackers get in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. You know, talk a little bit about 2015, what kind of year it is for you, and what your thoughts are about 2016.
Yeah, 2015 has been a great year for us. Our cybersecurity business has been growing. Our digital investigation business has been doing very well because it's often not realized by the public, but once somebody gets in on one of these cyber attacks, what they do is they actually start to look like an employee of the company. So we've been using our digital investigations and forensic heritage to really find these people that make themselves look like an internal attacker. So 2015 has been great for both of those product lines, and we're really excited as we move into 2016 about helping people manage what's called personally identifiable information. It's often what the attackers are going after, and we're starting to think about how we can use our software to help companies actually reduce the footprint of PII spread across the organization, making it harder for the attackers to get what they want.
Yeah, very good. Charles, we've got a couple of minutes left. Final thoughts?
Well, just one quick question for you, Patrick. I know that you work with a lot of Fortune, 100 companies and 500 companies, and so, I'm sure that you would appreciate more of those. But what really is your sweet spot as far as size of company and industry type?
It goes this way. If you have a business that's digital, we can help you. It doesn't matter as much the size. Certainly, as you pointed out, large banks and government agencies have to deal with these things. But the truth is, if your business is digital, then you need to think about this risk profile, and you need to think about how you keep your customers safe. No different than how you'd think about keeping your customers safe inside of a brick-and-mortar store. So for us, it isn't as much size of company. It's all about whether or not companies are really interested in keeping their digital customers safe. If they are, we're ready to do business with them.
Are you geographically specific, or are your customers all over the country?
No, we're a global organization, so we do have some density here in North America, but we also have locations in Europe and in Asia, so we're able to service people around the world.
Very good. Thanks so much. A great interview. Thanks so much, Charles.
My pleasure.
Patrick, by the way, Patrick Dennis, you can learn more about him at guidancesoftware.com. That's guidancesoftware.com. Charles Alvarez, you can learn more about him at cornerstonebusinessacademy.com. Thanks, gentlemen. When we come back tomorrow, we're going to have more for you. I do want to remind you, though, the show continues 24/7 at priceofbusiness.com. While there, like it on Facebook, follow it on Twitter. Have a great day. Spend it wisely on this station.